So I did it. I beat Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I got 100% logbook scans, 100% items, and the game is done for me. Well, at least until I do a hard mode playthrough, but I consider getting 100% to be like the number one imperative beating the game type deal. But yeah, never thought I'd be saying that in my life, that I beat Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, because this game has just been in development for such a long time. It's crazy how long that we've had to wait for this game, and I hope I never have to wait for anything nearly that long again. So yeah, I'm already planning my big, huge video critique of the game. If you've seen my previous Metroid Prime trilogy videos, you would know, like, I'm going for that kind of thing where it's detailed, it's fun. I like making videos like that, but considering it's been a week almost since the game has been out, I decided, hey, why not just get on camera and give you guys my spoiler-free thoughts on the game, so as to not keep you waiting too long for my big, huge critique of the game. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't know how long it's going to take. Like, the goal is to aim for releasing this month, but truthfully, I really don't know how long it's going to take. So please bear with me on that. But in the meantime, here are my spoiler-free thoughts on Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. This game has been a long time coming, let me tell you. Like, from Metroid Prime 3 releasing all the way back in 2007, to Prime 4 finally being announced 10 years later, and to now finally, 8 years after that, be playing the game on Nintendo Switch 2. I still kind of don't believe it. It's something that I've built up very strongly in my head, like these heightened expectations on what I want this game to be. Part of me didn't even know what I wanted this game to be. I just wanted it to be amazing. I wanted it to be like a big, huge return to form for the series after such a long wait. And in a lot of ways, it's a great return to form, but it is admittedly lacking in a few aspects. So much so that I've had friends reach out to me saying that they were actually pretty disappointed in the game, and that made me sad to hear, you know? These people I'm talking about are some of the most diehard Metroid fans, and for this game to not really hit for them, it makes me sad. And I'm not saying they're wrong for thinking that. I'm just relieved I can't relate to their opinions, because I really like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I don't think it's the best of the Prime games, of course, because Metroid Prime 1 is just really hard to beat in that regard. That's still my favorite game of all time. I don't think any Metroid Prime game in the future is going to ever be able to top that experience, but I do think this game is easily better than Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Like, if you thought the NPCs were annoying in Prime 4, you clearly haven't played Metroid Prime 3 and its hour-long intro of just trying to be a Halo clone in that sense. It's a lot like the intro of Metroid Prime 4, but Prime 4's was much, much shorter. Prime 4 does a way better job at balancing, you know, the kind of sci-fi military shooter-esque parts of the game with the exploration-based aspects that we've come to expect from Metroid. Like, this is a straight-up Metroid Prime game, and that's like pretty much the reason why I love it, is because it's a new Metroid Prime game. Do you know how few and far between we get these games? We don't even get clones of them. Prime 4 really understands what this series is all about, and I'm here for it, man. Like, when I played this game, like when I first played this game in my home, I was just so happy to finally be playing a new entry in my favorite game series. And of course, it doesn't hit all the marks, which I'll talk about in a bit, but you know, neither did previous Metroid Prime games. Even Prime 1, as much as I love it, it has some of the most annoying backtracking of the series. I still think the good of Prime 4 far outweighs the bad. The visuals of this game, we gotta talk about. You really can't have a Metroid Prime game without having like some of the best visuals on the platform that it's on. And Prime 4, not even just on Switch 2, but on Switch 1, it's the best looking game on both platforms. Maybe there's a case to be made that it's probably not the best looking game on Switch 1 because, you know, the resolution is just so low, but I saw Digital Foundry's footage of it. It still looks fantastic, dude. It's shocking what they were able to pull off on the Switch 1, but here on the Switch 2, it is currently like the best looking Switch 2 game. It's not even that it's totally realistic, it's a stylized realism, the kind that we've come to expect from the series, especially established later on with Metroid Prime 3. There are humans in the game, there's human faces, but they don't look like too real, you know? There's still that sort of animated style to it, but it's really reflective in the environments. Like, it throws you into Fury Green at the beginning, the jungle area, which is just the best looking area in the entire game. It's kind of a bummer that we started off here, because I feel like the rest of the areas, they don't stack up visually to this one, but still, just walking through this area, scanning each and every flora and fauna, it made me feel like I was back home. Like, I haven't been in a new world in this universe in over 18 years. It kind of just healed a little bit of my inner child, I will say. Maybe healed isn't the right word. It made my inner child happy. Let's just say that. One of the most common criticisms I hear about these areas, and I do share somewhat of the same criticism, is that they feel a little too linear, which is such a weird thing to say because Metroid games, like their map designs are they kind of have always been like that. But in this case, it feels more noticeable in Prime 4 because like more often than not, you're going like in a straight line down like narrow hallways. So it feels more linear in that sense. But most of my worries about these areas being too like narrow were washed away when I revisited them to do the classic move of getting 100% item completion, going back to find missile expansions, shot expansions, energy tanks. I feel like energy tanks are way more valuable here than in other games because sometimes the game is just so freaking hard. Not as hard as 2D Metroids, but still more challenging than I've seen previous Metroid Prime games. But I still found backtracking to be just as enjoyable this time around as in previous Prime games, although admittedly, like, there's not as much backtracking built into the main quest. There still is, of course, like when you go to Flare Pool and the bridge just collapses and you have to find something else to be able to get past it, so you go to an area you've already visited. This is a Metroid Prime game. Of course this was going to happen. Maybe not as often as in previous Prime games, but it's still here. And I was having a discussion on the Super Switch Heads podcast recently with my buddies David, Jordan, and Rob of Rule of Two Review, and Rob was actually telling me in that discussion that even though like Prime 4 appears to be like a smaller game, these areas specifically, Prime 3 actually had like way less like foot space in these rooms than in Prime 4. Like even though Prime 3 looks to be more open because there's a lot more outdoor areas, the rooms in those areas were actually much smaller. Which, you know, Metroid superfan Rob, I take his word on this. So in that sense, maybe there is more to explore in Prime 4 than there is in previous games. And that's not even counting the Soul Valley Desert, which to me is the most disappointing aspect of Prime 4. And by extension, the Viola Cycle. Like, I thought the Viola Cycle looked super cool when it was announced. It still looks super cool on its own. I mean, Samus on a motorbike, like, how could you not like that? But in practice, it definitely feels like it was added for the sake of, you know, looking cool and adding extra padding to the game. Like, in order to get between areas, you have to drive through the Soul Valley. There's no other way. There's no fast travel. There's no interconnecting between other maps. It's just through the Soul Valley, and it just doesn't feel very interesting. Like, controlling the motorcycle is fine, but other than that, like, the actual activities you do with the motorcycle, even if you count the 2 boss fights this game has with the motorcycle, it's just not very interesting. Like, there was nothing about the Viola Cycle that made me go, oh, this is a really cool feature, very game changing. It's just extra padding, especially when you consider that you collect green crystals primarily in the Soul Valley, and green crystals are one of the 3 endgame items in Prime 4, endgame fetch quest items, I should say, which is why, like, if you're still playing this game and you're not done with it, you really gotta get those green energy crystals, like, in between driving in the Soul Valley, because you will regret it later if you don't. So if you do collect the green energy crystals, like, as you go through the game, the endgame fetch quest is going to be so much easier. I heard, like, this is one of the worst endgame fetch quests in the entire series, but when I did the actual quest, I thought, really? That was it? Like, that was supposed to be the worst one? That was way easier than even Prime 3's endgame fetch quest, but it's because I realized that I collected all the green energy crystals ahead of time. I didn't even know that was an endgame fetch quest item. I thought it was a neat little thing to do on the side, but nope, it's part of the game. Do it, and you will also reap some rewards, like a stronger psychic beam, and the psychic beam is essentially just a power beam in this game. Like, speaking of psychic abilities, these were cool as well. I thought they were a little underbaked, though. Like, the psychic abilities were just, you know, puzzle solving devices. There are some combat ones too. The control beam can be used in combat, but it's most interesting when it's being used in puzzles. I really wish, like, the psychic abilities would really make Samus feel like a full-on, like, telekinetic badass, right? Of course, they couldn't just add this to the game later. The game would have to be designed around it, but what if she had psychic abilities where she could move objects, like, with her mind? Yes, move objects with her freaking mind. I know the meme, but basically she could throw boxes boxes, throw other things at enemies. That would have been so cool. I'm not like subtracting points because the game doesn't have this. I was just thinking like if they wanted to get a little more crazy with the psychic abilities, they could have, but as it is, they just feel more like new additions to Samus's like existing tool set. They make some things appear out of thin air like spider ball tracks and floating platforms, but other than that, they're just more ways for Samus to, you know, solve puzzles and such. Again, not a bad concept at all. I really think it's cool, but they could have been a little more creative with her psychic abilities. But there are two things about this game that I think really stand out and make it such a fantastic experience. The first being the bosses. Like, these bosses are some of the best bosses in the entire Metroid Prime series. And I should know because I just played the Prime trilogy before jumping into Prime 4, and I gotta tell you, these were so good. They were like a great mix of strategy because, you know, Metroid bosses are pretty much puzzles in and of themselves, but they also just had really cool attacks, really cool designs, and the addition of Samus's jump dash, it was also really welcome. It doesn't really turn the game into something like Doom Eternal, but it does make the combat a little more faster, and I really appreciated that addition. Some of my favorite highlights were Zelios. There's another boss later that I probably shouldn't mention because it's much later in the game, but I really dug the bosses here. Like, I'm very glad that they nailed the bosses of Prime 4, just like I'm glad they nailed the music. If you saw like my last reaction video to the overview trailer, like, I thought the music didn't sound that great. I think they were actually playing the Metroid Prime 4 main theme at the end of it, and for some reason it just didn't sound great to me. I expected more of a bombastic feel, like a more like epic orchestral feel to the music, similar to what we got in the original Metroid Prime trilogy. But in the end, the soundtrack just was a home run. They brought back the original composer Kenji Yamamoto and Minako Hamano. I think she also did some music for Metroid Prime 3. They just absolutely nailed the soundtrack here. It does sound different at times, especially with the electric guitars and such, but it still sounds so good. One of my like personal highlights is the generator theme from the Volt Forge. It's just a banger. It's a bop. I think I'm playing it in the video right now. I also like the battle music for Zelios, but my favorite theme is of course the Fury Green theme. I think Fury Green is like the perfect sort of Metroid Prime song that sounds like a Metroid Prime game in like the atmospheric sense, akin to Phendrana Drifts, Talon Overworld, you know, music like that. And I am just perfectly happy with Metroid Prime 4's soundtrack, especially after Metroid Dread's soundtrack was really disappointing. I also have feelings about the story, but I kind of want to keep them a little under wraps, even though like I wouldn't spoil anything. I don't want to tell anyone how I feel about the story because I don't want them to go into like the ending of this game thinking one way or another. So I'll just leave that for my final review, of which I will go over spoilers. I will go over so much more than I'm actually going over in this video right now. Just my overall unscripted thoughts of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond are as follows. I really like this game. Did I want it to be better, especially after such a long wait? Of course, but I'm still more than happy with what we got. This is a Metroid Prime game, dude. Like I said, there are no other games like it, and just the fact that we're getting a new one in 2025 just makes me feel incredibly grateful. But you know, the part that makes me the most sad is that it didn't make everyone happy. Like, when I saw the Metacritic score, like the morning they dropped, I saw it at 79 before it went up to 81. That's when I kind of went, oh no. Like, oh no, like this can't be. But then I remembered Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze got like an 83 on Metacritic, and it's one of the best 2D platformers of all time. So all my fears just vanished after that. And I'm glad they did, because I still wound up really liking Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. But I think part of the reason why not everyone loved it and not everyone was like a huge fan of it was because the expectations were so high after such a long wait. And that's why I feel like Nintendo announcing this game as early as they did ultimately did more harm than good. But also I'm conflicted, because maybe if they didn't announce it that early, then they would have just scrapped the game entirely after it didn't work out with reportedly Bandai Namco Singapore. So maybe it was a good thing they announced it that early. But at the same time, dude, when you go out and you tell us that you had to scrap that version of the game because it wasn't living up to your expectations, that makes us think like your expectations are so high that you're not going to put out anything that's less than your best. And unfortunately, this is not the best Metroid Prime game because of the flaws such as the desert, such as the Viola cycle, which just felt very tacked on. And I ultimately can't get too mad at anyone who found this to be a disappointing experience because of flaws like that. But I am just so glad I can't relate to their feelings that much, because I still really came away from Metroid Prime 4 more than pleased. And of course, it's going to wind up being my Game of the Year 2025. I mean, I think you all should have seen that coming with how much I've just hyped and anticipated this game. Like, this is really good. I really like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. And if you have not played any Metroid Prime game yet, if you haven't even touched Prime 4 yet, I highly suggest it, because I really think this is a great entry for newcomers. Like, it is a little hand-holdy at times, especially with Miles McKenzie on the radio telling you where to go next, even though previous Metroid Prime games also did the same thing, just with Samus's suit computer. But I think this is a great entry point for newcomers, and I really hope, like, in the next few years, people will look back on Metroid Prime 4 more fondly than they are now. I'm already looking at it pretty fondly. But I also heard that Metroid Fusion was not looked upon very highly when it first came out, and now it's considered like one of the best games in the entire series. So who's to say what the future holds for Prime 4, or even holds for the franchise in general? I'm not thinking too hard about the future of Metroid right now. I'm just concerned about the present, how we're feeling about Metroid Prime 4 as it is, and yeah, like, there it is. There's my spoiler-free thoughts on Metroid Prime 4. Of course, I'm working on a big, huge critique of the game, so if you want to be notified whenever that goes up, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and press that notification bell. Also, like this video if you really liked my review of Metroid Prime 4. It feels like an impressions video more than anything, even though I've already beaten the game. I've beaten it 100%. I'm going to do that hard mode playthrough real soon here. I don't know how soon, because I got a lot of stuff to work on in the meantime. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of Metroid Prime 4 down in the comments below. And I'd also like to thank my beautiful Ferris Wheel members for supporting me and my channel. If you want to become a member to get early access to some of my uploads, well, hit that join button down below. But until next time, bye-bye.